it should be going live, and it usually does take a few seconds, but what I can do is I can also pop open just on, let's see, yeah, on in my browser here. I can pop open YouTube, my YouTube channel. Still shows upcoming. Why does it say upcoming? Oh, yep. Should I hear myself? Okay, yeah, we are live.
Nice.
All right, we'll close that tab so I don't waste bandwidth.
Right.
So, and yep, I already hit all the wrong buttons here. Okay, that's why we do it live, right? Oh, it's really laggy now all of a sudden. Weird. My webcam and audio are super laggy now. Is it for you?
That's okay. I can still see you, at least.
But is it weird? Anyway,
it is
okay.
laggy.
Yeah, I think I'm asking my computer to do too much. So that's great. That's why we test these things out ahead of time. I've got to figure out a better setup for the guest thing. Cool. I'm going to check audio levels real quick first on this to make sure that I'm not blowing people away with the background music, because that would be bad too. So that's a test. That's why it's a test.
That's a good first step.
Yeah, right? So I'm not blowing people away, but you can hear the nice background music, so there's no dead air, right? Let's open, doing it on my phone on a different network so that I don't mess up my streaming here. Okay, me. Also, welcome if you're randomly observing this. I'm sorry that it's... Oh yeah, here, the audio's there. Oh, it's like several seconds behind. Okay, I'm going to take my headphones off and listen to this. We're testing a stream for a thing. That's why we're here. But... Oh yeah, that sounds nice.
Sounds okay?
Might turn it down just a little bit, but it's pretty good.
I can hear it. I heard it a little
double
bit.
Time. That's weird. All right. So like 20% volume or something is fine. Okay. Oh, what I didn't test is I didn't have you talk. So you talk real quick.
Okay, this is me talking. How do I sound?
And then I'm going to jump ahead here on my stream.
Is it clear enough?
Uh-oh, it's frozen.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
So like 20% volume or something.
Okay, so I'm hearing myself through my own speaker, which I should have done this with headphones. It's fine.
So you talk real quick.
So yeah, I have me.
Okay.
Oh, that's how long the delay is.
Yeah. Which is fine because it's YouTube's processing it. Like, you can do a lower latency mode, but then your quality is lower because it's just optimizing for latency. So you'd rather have a little bit of latency but higher quality.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Did it sound okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, we're good.
All right. So I'm going to put this keyboard out of my way so I don't use the wrong keyboard. That's what I always do. And then I only have two computers in front of you. I'm just using this laptop.
So I feel like you have, in this first thing here, I feel like you have way more to juggle in front of you, technically.
I should take a picture of my desk. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah,
no, it's good though. It's part of it's like I had all my stuff technically set up, but I haven't actually done a stream for a long time. And so I was like, well, part of this is just me getting my normal streaming thing set up. But
well, hopefully all of it works perfectly together. I'm sure technology never fails, right?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to officially do a welcome. So if we were to cut the video from here, we can start here. So hello, everybody. Welcome. We are, I'm Cassidy from the Endless Foundation, and this is Justin from the Endless Foundation. And we are here to just do a little demo of setting up for a game making program on Windows. I'm not going to get into too many details because I don't want to make it too, I think, specific. But yeah, we're mostly doing this just as a test today. And if it works well, it works well. So yeah.
Cool.
And I intentionally didn't run through any of the steps at all on the Windows computer before this because I wanted to be actually a fresh rookie. So
no,
you're gonna have to guide me through
it. Well, I kind of did the same thing with, because I know as I'm watching you, if you're going to screen share your steps.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I'll pull this up here like this, and so I've got my real computer, and yep, I don't have anything pre-installed.
And I didn't write like a million things down I want to ask you because I know there's going to be new stuff as you go, as we actually walk through this for the first time. So this is, imagining if we've never installed the game engine we're going to install today, or never talked about a thing called Git.
Yeah, Git or Godot or any of it, right?
All right, so what?
Cool.
Yeah, so the game engine. So we're going to install Godot today, right?
Yeah. So we're using a game engine called Godot, which its URL is godotengine.org. Pretty handy there. And yeah, it's free. It's open source, so anybody can download it, and it works on Windows and Mac OS and Linux. We're testing this. We're demoing this on Windows because that's typically what we see for our game making programs. But yeah, we'll just show you how you would go get it. You go to
So on the website, pretty straightforward here, right? It's like right above me.
yeah. I was like, it was right behind you. Yeah, it's a giant button on the homepage, right? And you just download the latest version. We use the latest version for our programs, and you can just download it.
What is .NET, by the way? Why are there two versions? Do I just need?
It's weird. You just need the normal one. .NET is like it's a different programming language, which we're not going to get into with our programs. But it's like you'll know if you need the .NET version. If you don't know, you just get the normal one.
I got it. So get the top one that's in blue.
Yep. And
nice.
it's downloading. And of course, if you think Godot Engine's useful and you can afford a donation, we always like to encourage you to help people out that way. But we're gonna go ahead and open this up. So I just opened up it just downloaded a zip file. And in Windows, like when you open it, it shows you like a preview, but then like you got to put it somewhere. What I would probably recommend is if you just try to run it, it's gonna say like you got to extract this, which is weird, but you can just tell it, extract it. And then it's gonna ask you where.
And you knew to grab the top one there, Cassidy, again?
Oh yes, yeah, good question. So there's this console one. Console is like, again, if you know you need that one, like you'll know if you need that one. It's a very specific version where you can use it like from the command line, I think. So, but you just want the top one there.
All right, the one that says exe.
Yeah, just the normal exe. And then when you go to extract it, I would recommend you can technically run it from here, but I wouldn't recommend that. You want to extract it, and it's going to give you a recommendation. So you can see here, it's just in my downloads folder, and then in a folder called the name of the download, and it has a little one next to it because I've already downloaded it once. But I would recommend just keeping the default there because then it has the version number in there, and then you hit extract. Again, I've already done this once, so I'm actually going to hit cancel and just show you where it would actually take me. So it would take me to my downloads, and then it creates a folder here. So once it's done extracting,
looks a lot like a lot like the zip folder.
Yeah, exactly. It's the contents of the zip folder just extracted, and it's a little confusing. It's because you don't have to install Godot at all, which is really convenient because you can actually like put it on a flash drive and like plug it into another computer and run it from there, which is neat. But yeah, it's a little awkward.
If I was looking for this folder, isn't like the only difference, like you could see that there's no little zipper on the folder?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah, it depends on your Windows settings. I think by default, Windows even hides the like .zip extension on it. I have mine set to show it because I find that annoying that it hides them. But yeah, it would just be like the zipped up version versus the not zipped up version.
Versus a regular folder. Okay,
how do
got
you
it.
zoom in here? Okay.
So here we are.
Yeah, or it depends on
there you go.
Thumbnails or whatever.
The little Godot icons hiding in the
folder.
folder.
Exactly.
All right.
But then you just double click that, open it up, and you have Godot. So nice. This is the Godot engine. This is by default, it's showing you your list of projects, and since we just downloaded it, we don't have any projects yet. And a project is like any game that you were working on, basically. So that's Godot. Now, what do we want to do for a project? How do we want to actually get a project?
I wondered if we could do two things here. I'm glad I didn't write this down because I'm just thinking of it now as you're showing this opening project list.
Mm-hmm.
Can you sort of show how you might create a blank project from scratch versus, Cassidy, maybe after that we could also show what it's like to pull in just from the asset library. Pull in the moddable platformer or Pong.
Sure, yeah. So if we hit a new project here, it's going to ask you what you want to call it, and it's going to have some kind of confusing options. Again, basically, it's like if you don't know any better, you can probably just use the default stuff.
Can I ask you something about this? This is something I did, and I bet you have better habits than me. So I just really wanted to get into Godot and see it. So I just hit create. Yeah, create.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if later on, like, because like I'm not very good at the file explorer on Windows. I don't usually need
Yeah.
it. And so then I struggled to even find my game after.
Yeah.
So maybe just the idea is like if you're going to pick a folder,
hmm
make sure you know where you put it.
Yeah.
Somewhere where you go often.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, by default, it looks like it puts it in just like your documents folder. Now that might be different. It depends on like, if you're using like a school computer or something, it might default to putting it somewhere else. I think it still would be in your documents folder though. And it's going to name it just.
You can always go here to see it, right?
Yeah. So if you create something like, if I'm bad and just call it new game project, which I bet a lot of people do, which is fine. So your game is always called new game project, right?
I just did that earlier today.
Loading. Wow. I usually use Godot on Linux, and I don't know how it compares on Windows. Maybe, I don't know if it's any slower or if it's just this computer that I'm running it on. Here we go. Cool. So yeah, we default to having the 3D view, which is kind of confusing if we're focusing mostly on 2D. So you can always select these tabs at the top of Godot here. You can select 2D. But then if we wanted to go in and look at our project settings, like that name, you go to this top menu bar here and it says project, and you can go to project settings. And so that's where you'll see, there's way too much stuff here, right? There's tons of stuff here.
Well, I also noticed, like, so one of the things I do that is, like, if I'm not sure where I put this, let's say we actually made a game here, or we started to make features.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to that project button in the top left and I just go back to the project list, it shows you where it.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're.
Yeah, if you quit out to the project list.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the best way, but
no,
that's how
fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it shows you the path right there.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's handy.
So
yeah.
It
shows you the version of Godot you used to make it. It shows you like the last time it was edited or saved here in the timestamp there. But yeah, then it shows you the location. That's handy. I think you might also... nope, maybe not. I thought maybe you could right-click and go to that folder, but no, I guess not. But yeah, it shows you where it is. So again, if you wanted to find it again, like in Windows, you could just go, you go to your file explorer. And I'm on Windows 11. It might be different on different versions, right? But here in Godot, it said, users, Cassidy, documents. So I'm going to go find my documents folder. And there it is, just new game project there. So I just created a folder.
One other question for you with this, and then we can move on. We can actually, let's load a game. But the other question would be, because it's not like an actual, like an app on my desktop, what I did was, as soon as I opened it, and I realized that, because the second time I went back, I couldn't find it. What I did was, when I finally found it again, I pinned it to the bottom taskbar, so that it basically acted like an app on the bottom taskbar, and I can find it quickly.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. So you can if you go in here, should we right click and say, can you pin to start? Oh, pin to start, which is different from taskbar. That's confusing. So pin to start.
Yeah, or once you open it, it'll be in the bottom on your taskbar already.
Yeah, it's weird. It's not showing me the icon. But yeah, it's showing, pin to taskbar. There you go. Oh, now it shows the icon. Okay. That's a good idea. Yeah, right-click it and pin it there. That way you don't have to go digging in your folders to find it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it kind of felt natural for me to have it there as I was going so often to it. So
exactly. Yeah, you just click it and then pop it open. That makes sense. I don't know why the icon wasn't showing, but it showed as soon as I pinned it, so that's fine. Cool.
But anyway, so new game project, as cool as new game project is, I wonder if we can look at Godot with an actual project in there.
Yeah, so do we want to grab something from the asset library?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay.
Stick with Godot and not anything else.
So the first time you open it, it'll tell you it requires an online connection. So it's asking your permission if it can connect to the internet, which yes, you need to do that. So you just hit go online. That just happens the very first time, just to kind of get your consent, so it doesn't start loading stuff off the internet for you. I'm going to maximize here just so we get full screen. Oh, hey, look at that. I see block coding demos right there. That's cool on the homepage of the asset library. That's neat. But we actually want... Do we
moddable
want
games too?
Oh, moddable games are right there, yeah. You want to grab one of those moddable ones, the moddable platformer?
Let's do the platformer.
Okay. So yeah, this is something we've developed and put in the asset library. It is basically an example game that you can play, and then you can mod it without ever writing code. You can mod how the game looks and works just using the Godot editor itself. So you're just learning the editor, not having to learn how to code. And not even learning logic necessarily. You're just changing how this existing game works.
And
we
if
hit download.
you wanted to, you could go crazy with it, but yeah, you don't need to. You don't need to know code.
Yeah, exactly. So hit download. I'm going to hide your face for just a second because you're hiding that little thing on the corner. I'll bring you back in a minute, though, and if I forget to, let me know.
Delete it.
And yeah, so it gives you a default name of moddable platformer once it downloads. I guess I can bring you back because it just was showing a download progress bar. And then it installs. So you can change the name if you want. I'm going to leave it moddable platformer. And again, it's showing you where it's going to put it. You could browse and say, I want to put it somewhere else. I'm not going to mess with that. I like where it starts out. And so we're going to tell it to install that asset, and then it'll open it in the editor. I'm thinking now we probably did get a little ahead of ourselves of like, we're getting into like the Godot stuff. Maybe this is a good place to pause here and jump into the Git stuff before we get too much into like the actual moddable platformer stuff. Because I guess this just means like you have it loaded, right?
Yeah, I wondered if we could maybe just back up for a second and talk about, like, because you found this game in the asset library, right? Mm-hmm. But most games are not sitting. There's not a bunch of games, a million games sitting right there in the asset library. So how might you actually find one? And I thought maybe we could just show the, GitHub and how you might go and grab a game from there without using GitHub or Git
itself. Yeah. We can introduce GitHub itself. So yeah, github.com is a place where open source developers, like, they manage and develop their software and put it out there for anybody to get. I don't know if you have a better explanation than that, but that's just the simple explanation there. I'm realizing I'm not signed into my stuff here, which is probably fine because we can create an account and stuff if we want. To download stuff, you don't have to create an account. You can just go to like an existing Git project and download it. But yeah, what do we want to tackle next, I guess, specifically?
I think for GitHub, I mean, it was immediately appealing to me, even when I didn't fully understand it, because of the fact that people put their projects there. It's a place that people put their projects online. So I wanted to know how to go and get them. But then as soon as I did anything fun that I thought was exciting, like my first steps in Godot, I realized it wasn't exactly straightforward for me to show anyone what I had done outside of my room, the room that I created it in on that computer. So I thought of it pretty quickly as just like backup. Before I understood the cool part where I can collaborate with you or someone else and we can make games together, it's also just backup for my work. So I wonder if, like, before we launch too far into that, we just show the process. If you were looking to use GitHub as a place to store work, or, as you can tell, like we're hinting at, as a really important place to like share your stuff with friends, or like a peer that you're making a game with, maybe we could just show the account creation process.
Sure.
For now.
Yeah. Because it's like you can download stuff. You can definitely download stuff without having an account, but as soon as you want to start putting your own stuff up there, or there's even some search features and stuff that you have to have an account, and it's free. So yeah, we can create an account here. That's fine. So you go to, I guess, was there a different sign up button? Yeah, there's a sign up button. Oh, I haven't seen their new fancy sign up thing because it's been a long time since I've signed up for GitHub. So yeah, you start out, you give it your email address. I'm going to say, I'm going to do, my work email address, whatever, but I'm going to say GitHub at nsos.org. Don't spam me, please. And if you do, I can put it straight to spam. It's fine. I'm going to create a password here. I'm going to let my browser give me everyone can see my password. That's great too. I'll change it before. But it's a live stream. Oh, that's no good. Okay, we're going to have to figure out. That's really dumb that it shows that by default. Why is it? Come on. I have qualms about this GitHub. Incredible. Wow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to just our faces, and I'm going to let it generate a different password. That's really funny.
We can do that. We'll do that off camera.
Exactly. That's really, really funny that it just...
But yeah, I didn't want to launch too far into it because, it's a big teamwork tool. But I do think you would agree, right, that it's also just a nice backup for your work online, so
Yeah.
that you're not all your work isn't just stuck on one computer. And eventually, we're hopefully going to get there when we're talking about this stuff. But it's worth signing up for that reason alone.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to think of it like, it depends on what people use, but you use Google Drive, you use Dropbox, you use whatever, you use these things that you store your work online in all the time. And this could
Yeah.
be a great space for that, for gaming, so for game design.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's made specifically to host, code, but under the hood, a Godot game is code, right? It's code and it's a bunch of images and assets and stuff, but like the core of it is code. So GitHub is a place to store your code.
That's an important point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not just
It's
some
not just-
magic
this
like
isn't just a
weird
gaming-
file. It's like it's just code under the hood. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just text files.
That
like it's
and
weird.
the
Yeah.
that and the GitHub is like people collaborating on all kinds of software. It's not at all just gaming. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I come from a background of like open source app development, and I've developed lots of apps with lots of different people on GitHub, and just only recently got into more of the game side of stuff. So,
Nice.
all right, I'm seeing what it's asking me to do here.
back.
So yeah, I entered my password, chose a username, and now it's saying solve this puzzle so we know you're a real person. Okay. I don't. What? Oh, okay. Sure. Oh, I'm training the AI. That's fine. No. Okay. That looks good to me. That's an interesting one.
You know what's really good is that people. I'm glad this is happening because this is a little bit to go through, right?
It's not just like give me a username and password. It's like no, you gotta do this. Now I have to go check my email on a different machine because I don't have it on this computer.
If you for anyone watching, just know that if this stuff comes up for you, it's totally normal, and it's.
Yeah.
I remember having to go through the same thing.
It's legitimately been. This is why I didn't set up a new GitHub account at the beginning of this, is because like it's been so long since I've done it. I didn't know the flow and everything here. Okay, so it's giving me a code here. I'm checking my email just on my phone. I could be doing it on the same computer or whatever, but it just gives me a bunch of numbers. So 9 3 4 5 4 0 0 2. And look at that. All right. It was created successfully. Please log in to continue. So once it creates it, what did I call it? It was this one, right? And I'm not going to show you my password, hopefully. Hey.
Hey, Cassidy, quick question.
Yeah.
My face on this stream, I have like lines that are indicating like pixels and or size.
Oh yeah,
going
that
up
won't that won't show up on the actual stream. That's just because you were
Okay.
because I just had you selected in OBS. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
I
just
don't know
seeing
if you're
the.
interrupted in your-
Nah, it's okay. You're seeing how the sausage is made. So you're seeing the OBS like window, not the actual like live stream window. But that's
Got
a good point. Yeah, that would be good to be like, why do I have dotted lines and numbers? Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So now what?
So
we're
yeah,
not
now
there yet.
we have welcome to GitHub. We're glad you're here. Technically, you have an account now, but it's like okay, let's set it up, whatever. In this case, yeah, you can just step through this to select whatever makes sense for you. Probably be like student. How many team members? This is whatever. Like it doesn't really matter. This is more for their analytics or whatever, so they know. I'm gonna say just me. If you know you're gonna be working with a group of people, whatever, that's fine. But you can just say just me. What are the new things? Top 2 things you want to do? Well, we want to start a new project.
Yep.
Maybe we want to connect with other developers at some point. I don't know. Again, this doesn't really matter. This is just for their it's a survey for them basically. And then they're gonna try to upsell you. So yeah, they're trying to upsell you to GitHub Pro. You don't need GitHub Pro.
We don't need any of this.
Yeah, continue it for free.
Continue for free
they
on
are
the
saying
bottom.
apply for your student benefits. So if you do have if you're a university student and have a university email address or whatever, you can do that, and you might get some stuff for free, whatever. But we can just say continue for free. It's easier. And hey, we got a pretty little illustration.
This is promising.
Hey, look at that. So this is your GitHub dashboard. So this is I've been using GitHub for probably over a decade now. Every time I open GitHub, this is what I see. With a lot more stuff filled out on it, but this dashboard. So it's almost like a social media feed. It's interesting. GitHub's kind of it used to be just a only code hosting. It was super technical, but they've gotten really much more social recently, which is interesting. So once you if you start using GitHub itself more, and following people or starring. Like if you find an interesting project, you can click the little star on it. It uses that then to like fill out your feed here, which is like stuff that's interesting, that might be interesting to do, or stuff that you, people you're following, like stuff that they're doing, which is, it's kind of cool. It makes it a little bit more social.
Nice. But for us,
you can ignore all that too. Yeah.
We're just trying to create an account for now. We're not,
so we got an account.
We don't have to make anything on GitHub today.
Yep.
But that's how you make an account. That's awesome. Because if we're going to do things in Godot and we're going to make games, ultimately we're going to want to send stuff to the spot to back it up or to work with others. So now when that moment comes, we're not also going through the 5 hoops that you just had to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you're sitting in a classroom or something doing like a program, it's like, okay, everybody go through all this stuff. Yeah, it's great to just have that set up ahead of time and you're good.
Awesome. And can you show what a game project looks like on GitHub real quick?
Sure. I can grab, we could grab like the moddable, we could just look at the moddable platformers code too. That'd be easy since we just kind of looked at that earlier. So I know this URL. I guess we could search for it and see if we can find it, but.
Oh, you can. Yeah, I've searched for it because I couldn't remember.
So, you know, the name, it's called Moddable Platformer. Oh, look at that. Yeah, Endless Moddable Platformer. So, you know, these are, when you do a search for something on GitHub, it shows you, here's a list of projects. It'll show you a little bit of information about each one, like which programming language it uses, how many people have started it, how long it was updated, how long ago it was updated. So Godot uses something called GD script, like under the hood. You don't have to learn GD script right away, but that's the... When you change stuff in Godot, it's saving it as GD script, like in the files. So that's a good indication that it's a Godot. People can also tag their projects. So you can also like follow the Godot tag or like go look at the Godot tag, which is an interesting place to kind of browse.
Oh, awesome.
On GitHub. Yeah. But yeah, so if you click into the actual project. So this is...
So this is like... Right here, Cassidy, like, okay, so we found this game. This is the same game that you just installed in 2 seconds from the library.
Yeah.
The first time I found this and somebody said to me, well, just go ahead and grab it.
Yeah.
I was like there are 3,000 buttons on the screen. Well, how do I grab it?
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got this list of like, I was hiding your face for just a second to show this like, you've got this list of like files. You know, this is the actual code, right? So it's
I started going through them.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the files of the project. You don't want to just grab one of these. If you're going to grab the project, you want to grab the whole thing. So there's this green button up here that says code.
And if we were just trying to get it, if we weren't planning on doing anything else but getting it.
Yeah, if you're just trying to get it, it's kind of confusing. It says code and not like download or something, but you can go there. And then at the very bottom of there, it says download zip. So that's going to download the contents of this as a zip file. So all these folders and stuff and files are going to be inside of this zip when you grab it. So we can do that.
And this was kind of nice. I think somebody, you or maybe Daniel showed me this, but you actually don't need to extract that folder. I don't think you can just drag the zip folder into the Godot project list.
Yeah. I don't think I showed you that one, but yeah, I always forget that. You can just grab, like if I go to my downloads here, I have that moddable platformers right here. So that's the one we just grabbed from GitHub. I'm going to do a little bit of Windows management there.
Yeah, that's actually the hardest part of it.
Yeah,
for me. Getting them both.
There's too many things open. So yeah, you can just
drag and drop,
drag this here, and then it's like, okay, what do you want to call the name? You know, where do you want to extract it to? Because it's going to take it and handle extracting it to like your normal projects folder. So again, it's putting it in documents. It's calling it moddable platformer main because that's the version we downloaded, is the main version from GitHub. So if I go back to GitHub, not going to get too far into how branches work, but like that's what it's coming from here. So this is the version, the branch name.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, there's different versions of it. And you're just grabbing the main one. Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, when you land on the page, it'll load like whatever the developers have set as their default branch, and it'll download that version.
So actually, that's not that. Yeah.
So it's like moddable platformer main, sure. You know, you can say that, and then you install and edit. And again, it's gonna copy those files there, and then it's gonna open it in the editor itself. So you can actually.
So now we have two moddable platformers.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine. Yeah. So yeah, two different ways to grab it. So it's a little silly to show it with a moddable platformer. This could be any game on GitHub, right? So if you were browsing like I was saying, that Godot tag. Like if you're browsing here, little caveat of like you want to make sure it's the same version that you're using, same version of Godot. So they actually do have a Godot 4 tag. I don't know if people use it as much. 1,000 repos. So you could go find, some interesting game here or something. And some of this stuff might not be games. It might be other tools that developers can pull in to make, add features to their games too. But
what I've found too is I've found games not paying attention to what you just said, and I grabbed old versions. And one of two things would happen to me. One, it would warn me anyway when I tried to open it and say, hey, this is an older version. Do you want to try anyway? And so I would take a shot, roll the dice, try it. And sometimes it was just too old. The version was so old that it wouldn't run. And other times it was able to sort of translate itself, I guess, or update itself to run on the newest.
Yeah, it'll offer you the option to, it'll be like, hey, this was built in an earlier version of Godot. Like, do you want to open it with this version? It's kind of hit or miss. It depends on how exactly that game was made. If you see that screen, it's a good hint that's like, oh, you can go get like Godot version 3 from the Godot website and use it. The problem is Godot 4 has a lot of improvements and stuff, so you really want to be using Godot 4 if you can.
So I wondered if whether we install a new game or we just work off the platformer, if the next thing we could do is I would love to see you make a bunch of changes to the game, little ones all over the place, break the game.
Yeah.
And sort of get yourself into a place where you would like to start over.
Yeah. Okay, great.
You were just experimenting and you'd like to start over. Because I think, we're going to talk about Git today. Yeah. And it's this totally other thing. And so, I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot. It's, why do we have to learn a second thing? Why I don't want to learn? Why can't I just do what I want to do in Godot? And so maybe that could be one place we could sort of talk about where it comes in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we will, I guess first do we want to set up Git first just so we have it ready and then dive into changing stuff? Or do you want to I can dive into changing stuff and then set up Git?
Could you go into the moddable platformer and break it to the point and run it so that, because you know how there is like a history tab in here in the top right. Yeah. So if you've never seen Godot and you're looking at Cassidy's screen, you're looking at this viewport, you like have all this stuff that you can click on in the game, like characters. There's this in the top left, there's like all those names. That's like all the building blocks of the game. And you can mess with and break and delete everything. And Cassidy is highlighted if he makes a little move with anything in the game, even if he just like moves the guy, it's gonna show up. There you go. So you get a new line on that history tab. If that was really, really consistent and worked all the time for me, I'd be good to go for a while before I needed Git. But it's like what I've noticed
if you're fiddling with it, you can see how it very quickly gets messy too. Like if you're like, oh, I want it there. No, I want it there. It's like, oh, now you just made like a million different things.
Yeah, and also I believe here's the big thing is can you quit to the project list, Cassidy?
Yeah. And then do you want me to save it first? That's a question. So if I so if I save, I'm hitting Control S, or you can go to project or where is it?
Or you can just run the game too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I'll save it.
I wish that play button up top right was huge.
Yeah, right.
I wish it was way bigger, but yeah, you can just run the game.
Wee.
There. Awesome guy there.
And then, so I have all this history of what I've done, and I've saved it. And then, let's say later I'm like, okay, I'm all done, and so whatever. And then later I come back to the computer and I want to open up Godot.
Which is, pretty natural. You're gonna make some changes, and then you got to leave.
And I forget which version I was on. I was on the main version.
It's the top one. Is always the most recent. Yeah.
So I was in this version, and I was like, you know what? Actually, that change that I made yesterday or earlier today, I want to undo it. Oh, no more history. Yeah. So that history is only there for your session, right? It's only there for your wall that is open. As soon as it's closed, it's gone.
So I don't know if you remember this, but that was the moment when I first started talking to you and talking about Git. I think that was the moment where I went, okay, what is Git? I want to know, because if I can't, what am I supposed to do? Like, what if I want to experiment? I don't know what I'm doing in the game engine. And so I need more control over being able to go back in time.
Right.
And what I was doing, I will admit, was dragging the zip file in over and over again to create a whole new folder and a whole new project every single time I wanted
Yeah.
to change something. It was
Yeah,
painful.
you're like, oh, I messed something up, or I want to. Yeah. It's like, okay, how would I get this guy back to where the exact spot he was? I don't know where that was before I closed this window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Git is a way. It's similar to like giving you a history of everything that's done, but you're more intentional about like checking in those changes. So you're saying like, all right, at this point, I want a snapshot of my work, and I'm going to provide some details about those snapshots. Something interesting actually might be to show you if I go back here to the moddable platformer, we can see there's this thing that says commits here, and it'll give you, it has like a little history icon. It'll give you a history of these commits. Now, some of these are kind of technical and not that helpful, but like at each
But those
point,
are over months.
Yeah. And at each point, it's somebody saying, hey, here's what I did. And they describe what they've done. And so that's really handy. They say they fixed the joypad to, analog stick mapping. So they fixed something with the joystick or with the, controllers. So it's really nice for like, I use it for like when I'm remembering what the heck I've even done. And also like, especially if you're working collaboratively with other people, like it's super nice to be able to see, here's everything they've done. And again, without getting like too deep into how Git works, but you can click on this commit and see, here's what I was talking about, that code under the hood of like everything that you do in Godot is saved to Git as code. It's just a text file. And so, this was something that somebody fixed here in Godot, and then it shows up in the text file here, and you can see a history of every single change that somebody checked in and said, this is what I did, which is really handy.
Yeah. So okay. So here's one of the first things that, besides realizing that history tab, it's cool, I like it, but realizing that it was only temporary, it wasn't really helping me experiment, which was really bad. Like I needed to be able to break things.
Yeah.
And never mind even constantly saving my stuff, I needed to be able to break a bunch of stuff and then say, another day, I open it back up and I go, I need this to all go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Just even that level of experimentation. So I wonder if we could go and get Git, and while we're doing it, if we could talk about, like, because we showed them this place online, we're talking about this place online, but now we're going to talk
from
about
your
just
computer.
a local tool.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So and this I'll actually need more of your help because I'm not as familiar with Git on Windows. I use Endless OS, Linux-based thing, but let's show it on Windows. So
it's interesting that you said that, because like I think it was, if we go and search download Git.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular. There it is. Top link. What I think you're pointing out though is this kind of system. What Git is, a version control system. There are many kinds of this.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's different kinds of it. Git's the most popular sort of version control system. Like kind of has become the de facto standard for like computer scientists and engineers and programmers. But yeah, there are other kinds. There are other ones, and
not only that, but you're pointing out that there are different looking kinds of this application.
Yeah. So
on Windows,
right. So if you're on Windows, if you're on like Linux or Mac OS, you can use Git. It's slightly different. You use it through your like computer's built-in terminal thing. I don't know if it comes by default on Mac OS, but it comes usually by default on Linux. Whereas on Windows, you have to download a program to use Git inside of it. So you're going to download this, this thing, and you'll have a command line version of it for this.
Awesome.
Interestingly, like you can also like GitHub. So GitHub and Git GitHub uses Git, but it's not just like GitHub is not just Git, or Git isn't just GitHub. That makes sense. There are other Git hosting sites out there like GitLab and lots of other ones.
Can I try something and you say if I'm off or not?
Go for it. Yeah.
That Git, this thing that we're looking at now, where you're going to click download for Windows in that little monitor, like this is a local tool for yourself. This
Yeah.
is not necessarily the other thing. GitHub is a hub, a place where you store your work and you work with others,
Mhm.
and you can do some work there. But these two things are going to work together. One
Yeah.
acting as like a local thing, and one acting as like an online place, right?
Yeah, the way, yeah,
Nail
yeah, that's accurate. And I think I would just expand on that a bit to say, like, I think GitHub is a repository, a storage place for a lot of different Git projects, and you can put your Git project there. And then Git itself is the tool that you use to actually like talk to a Git remote or Git like a GitHub. So you can do a bunch of stuff locally with Git, and it can be useful locally too. But that tool then, like, where Git really shines is when you're sharing it with other people or putting it up on the internet to back it up or whatever.
I get it. I think the problem with me calling it local is it's not really like an app per se. It's a whole system, a way in which you work through. Yeah. So it doesn't just live. Okay. So let's grab it.
Yeah. And I will also say, which we can grab this too if this is helpful. Let's see, click here to download. I see this. I have to read this text actually. This is the most recent. Sure, that sounds good. Yeah, I think that's
Top
fine.
one. Click here
Yeah,
to download.
you can also there's like this portable version, which is interesting. If you're not allowed to, or you can't install apps for some reason, you can grab the portable version, which means it'll be a little bit less integrated with things, but like you can still at least use it. But yeah, we're gonna assume hopefully you can just download the normal version here. I was gonna say, so interestingly, GitHub also has a desktop app. You theoretically could do everything you need to do through just the GitHub desktop app. And it uses Git internally inside of that app to do all the same stuff that we're talking about. So we might show kind of both. I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it is useful if you want to use Git. Oh, we gotta, permissions, all this stuff. Yes, I want to allow. Yes, it's open source. Here's the license. It's going to put in the program files. Yes.
So there are a couple things here that came up that I thought were interesting. I want to see.
Yeah, so this is one of those like,
Yeah.
oh, there's too many options here. I'm gonna think I'm just gonna use all the defaults, right?
Yep.
This is probably useful. This bottom one is if you use the Windows terminal app, but I don't know. I'm gonna check.
What I was recommending, because people might be on different operating systems, though, is when we go to open it and look at it, we use that one called Git Bash.
Yeah. All right, and I'm just gonna again select all the defaults here. This is one where I would strongly recommend somebody chooses. Oh, they don't let you choose. Oh, that's. Oh wait. Okay. I would. So it has this. Okay. What's the context we say? So Vim. I'm sorry.
Well,
first of all.
Well, wait. If they're just doing whether what we're talking about today or in your first steps into this, is Vim that much different from any other choice? Like, if you're just doing little things,
I would say yes, because just like it's literally even hard to like get out of it. And I think even on most of the time when you use it on Linux, it's not Vim is not the default. Like, it depends on what version, whatever. It depends on a lot of things, but. On a lot of versions of Linux that you'll get, they'll use what's called Nano by default, which is like, it looks similar. It's still, nerdy tech, whatever, but it's a little bit easier to use. I would recommend if you, it's hard because you could use Visual Studio Code or whatever. Like, you could use a lot of these things if you're used to them. If you have to choose between Vim and Nano, I would highly recommend Nano just because, as a beginner, just because it's simpler. But I guess I don't know. Should we leave it as the default, or should we select? What do you think?
It's up to you. If you think Nano, either way.
I'm gonna select Nano, but we can also maybe in a future video or something show how to like actually go and change this if you're using a different code editor or something. But
but the process will be the same, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
okay, so next, and it's saying adjust the name of the initial branch in repositories. So like Git decide. Oh yeah, so we're talking about this where like. Basically, the new de facto standard GitHub and a lot of open source projects do main instead of master. So for consistency,
we recommend changing the main,
And then Okay. Oh gosh. Wow. They really make this nerdy. I've never set up Git on Windows before.
I not gonna lie, as a typical bad,
You
I
just-
did not. I did a
you were
lot
just
of the
like
default.
next. Yeah. Right. Which is like
Pretty.
that's the reason they're selected by default, right? Is like if you don't know any better, you can just hit next, and it's probably good. I find it really weird that they use Vim by default as the because they
Okay.
even say
Well,
they even
because it was.
on the thing they're like Vim is hard to use. It's like why is it the default?
Yeah, I
But-
didn't read the hard to use part and
Yeah.
went with Vim, but
Yeah. So yeah, I would say probably. Let's see. From Git Bash only, Git from the command line, and also from third-party software. That's probably fine. I think that's fine. It's the default. Yeah. Again, I'm gonna use the default. You shouldn't have to care. I'm gonna use the default. That's fine. There's some weird like. I guess if you're like at a school or an organization or something that like has some really specific needs for this, they should be the ones setting up Git for you, like on the computer ahead of time. And so if you're setting it up, you can just mostly choose the defaults. Oh goodness, yes, this is interesting. What do you recommend for this, Justin, or would you just click through the defaults too?
I clicked through the defaults.
Through the defaults, okay.
It hasn't affected me yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is like Windows stores files one way, and other systems like Linux and Mac OS store them what's called Unix style. And so like this first option is probably the safest. It says like when Git downloads a file, it'll like convert it for you, and so then you change your stuff, and then when it pushes it back, it'll like change it back to whatever it was. So like this first one is basically like automatic, which is probably what you want by default. People have strong opinions of why you should do other things, but again, it's the default, so we'll keep it.
I did not pick that bottom one because I assumed that I was not going to be using that console window. I was going to use Git Bash, and I thought that's what it was telling me, so I picked the top one here.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't know enough about Windows console stuff, so I'd probably just keep it default there too. And then, interesting that it's asking you this stuff ahead of time too, because usually we'll just ask you like in the terminal when you do something, it'll be like, which one do you want to do?
Can you guess what I picked? Can you guess what I picked?
I'm gonna guess you just click next, which is fine. And this one, same thing.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Next, that's fine. Files system, sure, yeah, whatever. Next, that's fine.
I think that's the last one. I think that's the last one.
It really asks you a lot of questions. That's funny. I guess like
I'm tired. I'm gonna go.
The Linux way, I guess. Like, again, I come from like the Linux world. I think it's like it would just have all the default settings by default, and then if you want to change it, you can go change it. But like, it's not going to ask you ahead of time. It's just going to have the default settings, which I think is fine too. But yeah, and you can tell it to launch it right now, which we can do, or we can go show you where we'd find it, I guess too, which we also don't need to view the release notes.
I find launching it with not connected to anything not helpful for me. So I wonder if we could now.
Yeah.
So this is a moment. This is another one of those moments. As a new, I just installed what I understood to be an app, which you have corrected. There's an app related to it.
Right.
It is a version control system. It's a way in which you can track your work, save your work, bundle your work, all kinds of cool stuff, create separate versions. But you can do all that. But like when I installed it, my first thought was, where did it go? Like, why am I not looking at a really cool app yet?
Right. Especially if you're like, okay, I want to go see my apps here. Okay, this Git thing. Okay, there's a folder called Git. Oh my gosh, there's like 5 things in here. There's like it's like 5 apps. It's like 3 apps and 2 websites, which is confusing.
So I wonder if if we could do the first thing we could do with it is show someone how to link it up with whatever project they want to experiment on. So they had Godot. They know how to mess around in there, but now we're saying, oh, this thing's cooler for experimenting and saving different kinds of versions of your work. So, but how do we connect them? Because they're not automatically.
Yeah. So one thing, when you install Git, one handy thing it does is it will put some options in your oh gosh, Windows hides this stuff now. They changed this in Windows 11.
Show more options, and then it's
so they show you the old menu. And it even looks totally different, like style-wise. That's so funny. Okay, well now you know. It adds some options here in your right-click menu in the Windows File Explorer. So you have this Open Git GUI here, Open Git Bash here.
And I did the Bash. Yeah.
Those can be really handy. So if you go into if we're in this moddable platform or main project, And remember, under the hood, Godot saves all your files, saves your project as just a bunch of files, mostly text files, but then it has all your stuff in
folder.
Yep, all files and folders. So this folder, if you were to take this, just like how we downloaded it, if you were to take this whole folder and put it somewhere else, you can run your project and edit it and stuff. So that means this folder, this moddable platformer, main, whatever you named your project, or if you were doing your new game project or whatever you named your folder, that's the home of your project. So we're gonna say more options, and we can say open Git Bash here.
Where did you just right click anywhere in the folder?
Yeah. I think you technically could right click on the folder itself here and do the same thing.
Okay, I thought you just showed me something.
That's totally. Oh, here it is. Git Bash here. It's the same thing. If you right click on the folder itself, but yeah, I did it where I just was like in the blank space over here to the side.
Okay, didn't know that. I always been clicking on the folder.
That's funny.
But this is what I like about this is that if you go ahead and open that, if you just open Git and you are not in the folder, you have to use this scary looking thing and navigate your way to the folder.
Yeah, like
which is totally possible.
If you open Git Bash by default, it's just like, okay, now what? Like, what do I do here? It's like a text adventure game or something, right? like what? And if you know Linux or Bash or whatever, you can go CD space, not downloads, documents, and you can tab complete, and you can do all this stuff. But like, if you don't know this, you're lost, right? Like,
how do you even? I was totally lost. I learned like a command that I could tell it to do to save something, and then it said, "What are you talking about? There's no game here." And I went, "Wait,
you're like, where am I?
You don't know where my game is."
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah,
I don't know. And I don't know how to get to it. So this thing where you were just doing is really important to me. Where you were like going to the folder and then right clicking and opening Git Bash there.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend, just because it's going to make sure you're in the right place, right? So you open Git Bash, and it just takes you're in your project. Otherwise, you're actually using the Bash part of Git Bash. Fun little background if people care. The Bash part of Git Bash is like, Bash is when you use Linux or Mac OS terminal. When you use Linux or Mac OS, you're using Bash. You're using the command line interface, like when you're typing text into a terminal on those operating systems. What you're actually using is Bash. So when you install Git on Windows, it's installing Git, but in order to use Git, it installs Bash, so you get this like terminal window. So you're basically it's very similar to like you're basically using Linux. I mean, it's very, very simplified, but like you're basically using Linux from a terminal when you get into this window. So if you just open it from the start menu or whatever, you have to know a bunch of like Linux commands to be able to get yourself around. If you open it from your folder, you're at least going to be starting off in the right place.
So now that we is there something here immediately now that you've opened it inside this folder? How do we, so we're looking at this folder, but how do we make Git work with all these files for this game? How do we get it started?
I'm going to just double check. Okay, no, this makes sense. So I typed git status, which is a way to say like, what's the status of this? According to Git, what is the status of this folder? Also, if you see the word directory is the same as folder. You can they're the exact same in your brain. That's fine. I use them interchangeably. So Git, I think, likes to say directories, but it means folders.
That helps.
Yeah. It's one of those things of like, it's just kind of confusing. But yeah, so I just typed git status because I was like, does Git know about this folder? And it's just like, fatal, not a Git repository. So it's like, I don't know what you're talking about is what's basically telling me. So let's say even if we didn't download this from GitHub, if we had created this, in the Godot editor, like, and we had this project we wanted to put somewhere on GitHub, you need to do what's called git init, which is like initialize.
That's short for the word initialize?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And it'll say initialized empty Git repository and then it tells you, the folder where you are. And
cool. So that doesn't look that exciting, but it is to me because I know what that's going to let me do now. So you just put Git alongside, you parked it alongside the game.
Yeah. I told Git hey, this is a folder that I want you to track here. You'll also notice it added this word main on the end here. That's telling you the way Git Bash works. That's telling you what branch you're on. Again, we're not getting super into branches
version?
right now, but it's like, yeah, what version you're on.
And how do you, besides the word main,
Mhm.
like, okay, this is another thing that happens sometimes. It says so little to me about what just happened that I always nervously wanted to be like, well, okay, did that work?
Yeah.
You know, I looked it up and somebody said type git init, and that
Yeah.
means initialize
Great.
git. And
Yeah.
I think I'm good, but what do I do to double check to make sure something just happened?
Yeah, there's two things I'll cover actually. One is what I did earlier, which was Git status. Which I'm teaching all kinds of Git stuff Bash stuff unintentionally. You can hit the up arrow on your keyboard, and it will show you previous commands that you've typed. If you just keep hitting the up arrow, which is really handy because if you're like, oh, I typed something before, what did I type? You can just hit the up arrow up, and see what you did. So I was just going up because I said Git status, and it was faster to do that than to type it.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, that's what I would say is if you're unsure if you did it right, or you're curious what is going on with Git, you can type Git space status and press enter.
Okay.
And so now it's going to give me a lot of stuff here. I'm going to make this window bigger. Oh, except my face is going to be in the way. Here, let's just.
It says you're on the main branch though.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, which is the main version.
Yeah. So it's saying, if you have very type, you might have to scroll up or whatever, but Git status, it says on branch main, no commits yet, untracked files, and it has a list of files here. And you'll notice these files match what we see in your file editor, in your file manager. So you have, it's like, hey, there's all these files. They're red because they're not being tracked. They're not safe yet, but they're here. We know about them, but we haven't saved them. We haven't committed them.
At this point, yeah, and at this point, I think it's important to say, everything you just did will go faster.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do any of that except for opening this. That's all one-time setup stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's not like you have to do this every single time. This is.
Yeah. We're not downloading Git every time.
Right. Yeah.
And we're not going and finding the folder. You'll know where your folder is.
Yeah.
And really, can you close this out, Cassidy? Could you close Git and just open it as if it was any other day and we had already done all that?
Yeah.
I want to open Git because you're also, let's imagine you're going to open Godot and start working.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go to wherever your project is stored, which, we've got it in documents here. I would right click in here and say open Git Bash here. Honestly, if it was me, I'd probably open Git Bash and CD, do the Linux command things to get there. But
I know.
Yeah, that's a different
But
thing.
there we go. And we're ready. And now what's can we do some basic payoff stuff for all that work?
Yeah.
Can we open Godot and could you make a crazy amount of changes? And maybe I'm going to tease something. I wonder if one of the first things you could show is the command to restore things. If you don't even know how to add them to Git or how to even do that. You're just trying to use a single command in Git to go, give me my main project back.
So it's a little weird because Git doesn't know anything, like we said with our Git status. It doesn't know anything about this folder yet. So I think we still do need to add our initial files the very first time, right? So we still...
Oh, I thought if you use git restore space dot, that whole little command, I think if it's... Can we just try not even having things added?
I think if they're not added, they're not tracked. Because
let's find out.
They're not tracked at all. Yeah, we'll find out. Because it doesn't know, it doesn't have an initial state, I guess is what I'm saying. So if you, another command is you can say git log, which gives you a log of the
no commit
changes, and it's there's nothing here. I can't do anything really. So you need a starting commit. Now if you downloaded if we were farther on and you had actually cloned a Git project, that would be different because it has a history, right? We downloaded
That's why that was working for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we just downloaded the code itself, and as if we had written all of this code ourselves, and there's Git has never been touched with it before.
Got it.
So yeah. So initially you would want to add your project, right? So we can show
how
that.
do we do that?
So yeah, so let's say, okay, we made a game. We made a game in Godot, we started a game in Godot, and we want to say, okay, we want to save our work in Git so that we can use all the benefits of Git later on. So first thing I would do is,
So
like I said, git status, just to see like, okay, where are we? What's going on here? I frequently use git status to this day. Like, it's like, what's going on? And so it's saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of files here, but they're red, they're not tracked. So I would want to add those files. So you can do git. Oh, your head is in the way again. We're just gonna move it, manually size it.
Oh, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't duck. You need a green screen and then transparent
move
background, and
this?
you can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so you can git, and then I guess something helpful to know is you can say git. Can you just type help? Is that useful? Yes. Something you can do is you can type git and then space, and you can type the word help, and it'll tell you all the stuff you can do in Git, which is nice. It's kind of a lot, right? Because there's lots of different things, but it's pretty well organized here. So it says like, you want to start working, you want to work on the current stuff, you want to examine stuff, you want to tweak stuff, you want to collaborate with people. So it's pretty helpful actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this git add. And so all of these commands, when you see command here, it means that comes after the word git. So you'd say git add. And again, if you don't know, I don't know if you can just write the word help. No, you can't. This is where it gets a little annoying. You can say git add, and you can do this dash help. Oh, wow. It's really just throwing me in the man page in the browser. I did not know it was going to do that. I thought it was going to do it in the terminal. Okay, well, that's not super helpful. We're going to close that. I mean, okay, if you wanted to browse, there's tons of information here, right? And it will tell you, you can really read to your heart's content. But yeah, we can git add. This is another weird Bash Linuxy thing, but a dot, just like a period on your keyboard, that means, in Bash world, that means this current folder. So a dot in Bash means the current folder. So in Git, it means the same thing. You're saying git add dot, everything in this folder.
Yeah, can I tell you how my brain was thinking of that? Because as a new user, git space add space dot, I use all the time.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm saying, add all the things that you've been doing since the last time you added things. Like, it's just all the new changes in my mind. But,
yeah, exactly. It's saying it's all the changes, but under the hood, the way it works, it's kind of curious. Because what you can do is you could sit here and say git add project.godot and say, I only want to add this one file. So you're giving it a file or a list of files to add. But yeah, the dot is a shortcut to say everything in the folder.
Got it.
Generally, like sometimes you might have changed a lot of stuff, but you only want to add one file for your commit, and so you can get in that later. Early on, it's okay to be like,
as you get into this, as you get into this, right, you might do a bunch of things and go, but not all of that do I want to save. And that's another great thing you can do is you can pick and choose. But at the beginning, when I'm just experimenting, I just kept adding everything. Yeah,
which is fine.
But
so we can git add dot. And so now we've added all of those files. So now if we say, before we do anything else, if we just say git status, you'll notice instead of having the red list of files, and when it's red, it didn't go into each folder. It just was like, hey, I don't know anything about this folder. So it didn't list every file under that folder. It just said, I don't know anything about the assets folder. But now that you've added it, it's going to tell you every single thing it knows about. It's like, I know about the background layer. I know about the background layer.import. I know about this. So it's going to show you every single file in your project that you've added. And again, normally you're not going to change that many things all at once. This is just because it's the first commit that we're doing.
So let's go into Godot and do some changes.
All right. Let's we have to technically, oh my goodness, I'm not used to Windows. We technically have to commit this first too. So Git now knows about, we added these files. We told add means like, hey, Git, pay attention to these basically, but we need to commit it. So commit means like actually save it to the history. So you're committing it to history. You're committing it.
So this is another thing that was hard for me to get used to.
Yeah.
It's not that hard now.
Right, but it's these two commands, right?
Maybe a single button click that says I'm saving this. But now it's a sort of multi-step process.
Yeah, it's because it's really powerful and it lets you be really precise with what you're doing, but because of that, it can be a little bit more involved. So you're saying add it as in pay attention to these files, the changes in these files, and then when you commit it, you're saying like, okay, I actually want to write this to the history. And when you commit something, you are literally writing it to the history. You have to give it what's called a commit message, which is your description of what has changed. So in this case, we can do git commit. We can do a shorthand if that's easier, or do rather than getting into like the whole. So because you can do -- message equals, or you can just do as a short version of that dash.
Oh, I was just using the M.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
that's
using
what
the
it
long
stands-
versions because they're more explicit, but they are more to type, right? So like, but yeah, dash
Stands
M.
for
You can just remember it means message, right? It's the same as doing
So this
dash
So
message.
okay, so even though this is multi-step, Cassidy, this
Yeah.
is important because that first thing where you did git add, you're
Mhm.
like preparing or staging, I guess they call it, all the files. You're getting them
Yeah.
all ready.
Yeah.
And then this commit message allows you to say like what happened here.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of files that's not very readable all the time, but I'm going to leave a little message for anyone, including myself,
Yeah.
little breadcrumbs,
Yep.
so that I can look back and go, what was that all those files, what happened there?
Yeah. Yeah. So like for this first one, it's not super important. It's like, well, first commit, right? Like it's whatever. But if this was actually, you know, I guess even if you were creating a new game, if you had created a new game in Godot and you came into your folder and said, all right, well, this is first version or work in progress or whatever. Like this is just, it's your first commit. So you're not changing anything. It's just first thing. So I'm literally going to just say, I'm looking at my preview, which is like laggy compared to my actual computer screen. I can just look at the actual computer screen. Git commit -m, and then I'm going to put a message here, and I'm going to put it in quotes. I don't know if it has to be in quotes. I think it's where if you use certain characters, it technically has to be, and if you don't use those characters, it doesn't have to be. I'm going to put it in quotes. I think it's just easier.
I had a habit of doing that.
Yeah. Git commit message, and then I'm going to just say initial commit, which again, this one doesn't really matter that much. It is literally just the first thing. Aha!
First save.
This is good. We're hitting this issue. So when you commit, each commit that you make is associated to you. And again, the idea of this is if you're working in a collaborative project, I might make a commit and push my stuff out there, and then Justin would make a commit and push his stuff out there, whatever. And you want to know, you have a log of who made what changes. So it's not just what changes, but it's who made them.
Kind of important.
Yeah, some accountability, and also just like, so you just remember what you did versus what somebody else did. So you have to tell Git who you are, so it knows what information to put to associate with that commit. And again, this is a one-time setup thing, right? So this is, you don't have to do this every single time you use the computer. It's just on this computer, since I'm first getting Git installed here, we have to tell it who I am. So it gives you the instructions there too. So I'm going to follow the instructions and say git config. It's telling you to do it global. And again, you technically can have different email addresses per folder and stuff. We're going to just do it globally. That makes more sense. And then it says user.email, and then it says, put in your email. So I'm going to put in, I think I did Cassidy plus GitHub. I don't remember now.
This is another one-time.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to do this every time or anything. So you put in your email address. You'll want to put in the same email address you used to sign up for GitHub. GitHub will do some extra kind of magic to associate things together that way. So you do username, and then it also said to do your name itself. So, git config, config, global user.name, and I'm going to put Cassidy in there.
Hey, Cassidy, I will say too, the first time I ever did any of this, I didn't have a game already in Godot that I initialized or made a repository using Git in. I went and found that pirate game.
Yeah.
That somebody had pointed me towards. And when I found it and started trying to connect it to this, it sort of did this part automatically.
Like once you got to a certain part, it was probably like, it depends on how. If you used GitHub Desktop, GitHub Desktop will do some of this stuff for you as well, which is another reason that GitHub Desktop can be pretty nice. But this is
foolproof here. If you do it like this, you're good.
Yeah. So, and it won't let you do something you can't do, right? You try to do it and it'll be like, I can't actually do that. So now this is
Cassidy,
where...
Does your name have to be, when you put your username, does that have to be the GitHub name too?
No, name I think is just... I don't think so. I think it's email. Okay. It'll use your commit's email. And technically you don't... I think technically the email doesn't have to match. It's better if it does because it can do some more stuff automatically. Because you actually will authenticate with your username and password later on. When you actually go to push something to GitHub, it'll ask you in the terminal for your username and password.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And
so this is
just
you
have to type here. for
Yeah.
the first time. One was an email.
Yep.
And the other one was a username. And the email, it's helpful if you use the same email you just used to sign up to GitHub.
Yep.
But the name, maybe you can just put your name.
You just put your name. Yeah. It's actually probably better if you don't put your username and put your it's asking for your human name, right? It's like, because in GitHub you can, you have a username, but then in your profile you can set your actual display name or whatever. So my username or whatever is, I think I made it like Cassidy Endless or whatever is like my GitHub username, but on my profile it's like Cassidy or Cassidy Blady or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just in this information. Again, we're not even to the GitHub point yet, right? This is just talking to Git. We're telling Git when you make a commit, attribute it to this name. Yep. So we're saying attribute it to this email address and attribute it to this name, and that's handy because it can do some magic behind the scenes on the GitHub side to associate things correctly, but ultimately it's just what's storing in Git.
Yeah, and I think if anyone's watching this and saying that's 40 billion steps to do this, promise that Cassidy and I are trying to make sure that it's done in a way where you can really take advantage of this thing later if you have to work with people, which you do want to do. When you're making your game and you're working with others, you want to be set up in a way that's feels good and you're not trying to figure this all out then.
Yeah, exactly. And if I were... Let me finish committing this, and I'm going to demo something else really, really fast, just as a kind of to prove a point a bit. But okay, so we did what it asked for. We said it needs to know who you are, and now that we've done that, we want to retype this git commit because it actually hasn't committed. Because if we said git status, it would say the same thing here of hey, we have all this stuff, but there's no commits yet.
Now you have already done the add thing.
Yeah, we added. Yeah, when you add stuff, because you're just saying, hey, Git, pay attention to these files. You're not saying, here's the actual commit. When you say Git commit, you're saying associate the changes with my username, my person. So we can type Git commit, or I can just hit the up arrow again, I guess, because I previously typed this. But yeah, you can type Git commit -m for message, and then initial commit. And again, what's in those quotes doesn't really matter. That's your message that you're saying. So now it's saying, hey, here's what we did. And it's saying, okay, 104 files changed. There were 8,419 insertions. That means how many lines were changed or added. Lines were added. Because it didn't know anything. There were 0 lines. And then we added 4,814 lines. That's just what was there.
I think for me, as a new user of Git, at this point was the lowest for me, and I don't agree with my own opinion, but for me it was the lowest point where I was like, wow, I've gotten nothing from this, and that was a lot of work.
That was a lot of setup. But
I will say, from that moment, it only becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
The more you're into game making or writing code, the more you just grow from there, and you're like, this is becoming more and more useful.
For sure. I'm going to demo something really fast. Of let's say now that I've done that one single time on this computer, now let's say I made a new game, and I'm going to use my new game project that we did, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to open Git Bash, and I'm like, all right, I want to add this to Git. So all I have to do is git init. It helps if I can type. Git init, git add, git commit, message, initial commit. Boom, done. All that setup that we just did.
That is. You just have to give it your email and get set up. It's like reading terms of service or reading this or reading that.
Exactly.
There's all these things you have to scroll through or check off, and then now it's that's it.
So that's why I wanted to demonstrate this. Okay, we just slogged through this, but really all we did is we initialized the repo, we initialized that project, we added the files, and we committed the files.
Can you actually do it one more time on the other moddable one just to show it?
Sure.
The non-main one.
Sure, yeah.
Make me a believer that it's simple.
Yeah, so we open Git Bash in that folder. And we
open Git Bash in the
Git
folder.
Init, because we're saying we want to initialize it. Git
so you made Git exist, you've staged the changes, and then you've named the changes that you wanted to save.
And then if we go one more, we can say git log. Yeah, we're done. We can say git log to see those changes. And this is what we could have done on the other project too, but when you do git log, it will give you a list of these commits, and it'll say.
For the record, online there are a million different places you can Google for cheat sheets, and we also provide them for our programs.
Yes.
You do not need to memorize.
Right.
Cassidy Cassidy is showing
Yeah.
off his memory of all these commands because he uses them all the time.
Use them every day. Yeah. But yeah, and again, the Git help actually is pretty handy. It does tell you kind of the basic ones to start with.
Yeah.
And sometimes like if you don't know what you can type, you can also sometimes hit the tab key. So like if I hit git add and then I just like hit the tab key a couple of times, it spat out. It spat out. In this case, it spat out all of these files because it's like, well, which file do you want to add? You can also git commit, or like even if you're like it's com what is it? You can hit tab and it'll either complete it for you or tell you what you can type. So tab completion is one of those kind of shortcuts that I lean on a lot just in my like normal workflow, but I also recommend for newbies.
You're saying hitting tab halfway through typing it?
Yeah. So if you like hit git k and you're like, what is it? And you hit tab, it's kind of confusing because you have to hit it twice. First time it doesn't do anything. Second time it'll tell you what you can do.
Cool.
So it's like, oh hey, here's all the commands that start with the letter C. And then if you start typing commit and there's only one, that you hit tab and it just autofills the rest of it. So it's a way to speed up a little bit, which is kind of nice.
So how can we use it to experiment?
Yeah,
as a solo explorer of Godot.
Now let's go to our moddable platformer main one, right? This is the one to play with.
The main one, yeah.
So we're pretending this was a game that we had set up or whatever, and we want to make some changes and see how. Like let's break it, right? How do I break it? All right, I'm gonna put him. What happens if I start him right there? That's probably too easy to break, right?
Can you?
Oh no, it works fine.
Copy the bad guys.
Oh, there you go. I just like copy a bunch of bad guys and make a bunch of bad guys.
Yeah, you can right click on the or when you do that, it highlights them in the scene tree in the top left above my head here.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
you can right click and
I'm probably doing it. I'm kind of intentionally being like messy with it.
Let's just smash it.
Yeah.
Let's I mean, because like when you're first exploring it, you want to be able to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just added a bunch of enemies, and what actually happened here is, which is weird, is like added them inside of the other enemies and stuff. Again, totally breaking things on purpose. I just like I hit Control C and Control V, like pasted a bunch of times.
Now hit play.
It's like, all right, cool. I got my game. Oh gosh. Oh, there's too. Oh, I messed up. Oh, there's too many. Oh, I want to undo this. This is terrible.
That's actually awesome how they all fell by gravity like that at that moment.
Extra hard mode.
Yeah, this is an army. This is
I'm
like super hard mode.
Try too hard to actually play this game this way, right?
Okay, so when you ran that, if you're new to Godot, when Cassidy ran that, he saved the game. Every time you run that the scene like that, you hit play.
Yeah, you
hit play in the top right.
Yep.
Yeah, it saves the game. So now again, if he closes out of this,
yeah, I've got this history
tab.
So I can Control Z right now. I can undo, or I can go to edit, undo, whatever, and I have this history. But if I close out, then I come back into Godot later, I've lost that history now. There's no way to get back to the game that's not totally broken with all those enemies without like going back and manually deleting them and stuff. But
it's painful. You have to, like make a whole new folder, and no one wants to do that.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I have to delete all this manually or what? Yeah. So if we're like, hey,
cool way we can do it
we committed our project before we started making changes. We it's like we saved it, right? We committed that version, so we can go to our folder, and we can go to our actual project folder and open up our Git Bash.
Now can we use the Git restore?
Well, what we can do first is just Git status is always interesting. If you're like, what has changed here? Oh, I would also recommend, it's probably okay because we saved it and we're not doing anything. I would generally recommend, if you're going to mess with Git stuff, to close Godot while you're doing it, because it makes sure you save it and close Godot. Because if you do something in Git and then you do something in Godot at the same time, it can get in a weird place.
I've had weird stuff happen. Yeah.
But yeah, what you can do, just right out the gate, just say like, what has happened here? Git status, and it says, oh, you've modified this file called main.tscn.
That file is the whole game.
That file is the main scene of Godot, or of the game that we were playing. So it's saying, hey, you've modified that. So it knows now that that file's been added, or that file is being tracked. It knows that file has changed. So you can do lots of interesting things.
I have a question. Wait.
Yeah.
I have a question. Pretty much in any stage, of you thinking, like, let's say you started to save it in Git. You did the Git add, you did the Git commit. At every level, there is a way in Git to go, just kidding, I don't want that. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
To back your way out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I forget what those ways are off the top of my head. But
No,
yeah.
but that's,
Yeah.
but for me, but for the very beginning, what I think would be really helpful for someone is to not even have done any of it. You're just playing around in the game itself in Godot, crazy amount of army of bad guys, and you're not even, you only have this up because you want to do the one magical thing that like undoes all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, in that case, we're gonna do, and I'm leaning on you to know what you're teaching specifically, because there are a million different ways to do things. You want to do
what I was doing was git space restore space period.
Okay.
Which would, can you explain what that does?
Yeah. So what I just ran git restore dot, and then I also ran git status to show like the kind of the before and after, right? So git status here, and then git restore dot, and then git status. So before or after. When we first opened this project, or when we first opened up in Git, we said git status. Okay, it said I know that there's changes to this main scene right here. Restore is going to just reset things back to that latest commit, right? It's gonna be like as if you hadn't made those changes since the last time you had committed. And that dot is, again, you're telling it what files you want to restore. When you give it a dot, you're saying this whole folder. So you're saying everything. We could have said git restore main.tscn as well. So that would say restore that file back to its initial state.
And that would be more specific.
Yeah. But the dot is just saying everything that's changed in this folder that you're tracking, just restore it back to how it was.
So again, just as an idea, Git is sitting next to the folder that has your game. It's not the exact same thing as the folder on your computer. It's another space that sits next to it. And
it's like,
so,
it's
when
a
you
log
added all
of
those bad guys.
I would say it's like a log of information about the folder.
Okay.
Like it's
So it's kind of like following along what you're doing in that folder.
Exactly.
And so, okay, so that's one way to say. Okay, so what I sort of immediately understood was that I could make crazy changes to the game, run the game, break the game, get myself into all kinds of trouble. And because I hadn't gone in here and done those commands, git add, git commit, it's all just sitting almost like in that regular folder on my computer. And Git has the power to say, well, I've been watching and logging all those changes.
Yeah.
If you want, I could just wipe all that if you want.
Right.
One single command.
Yeah, exactly. It says, hey, I know the state of the files that they were before, and I know that they've changed. And I can tell you how they've changed. And if you want, I can just undo those changes. Yeah, exactly.
And and it's awesome because it's got a way better infinite memory compared to that little history tab in Godot, which forgets immediately when you open it back up. It's like, I don't know, what were we doing?
Yeah. Now, if you if we made a bunch of changes, and saved Godot, or saved the project, closed Godot, opened up Godot, made a bunch of changes again, unless you commit those changes in Git won't know about the difference. Like the different times it was saved, right? Git only like knows what these snapshots. It only knows when you commit a file, it's saying, okay, I'm committing it to memory. You can think of it that way. I'm committing it to memory. Like, all right, I'll remember that. And I'm
Can you prove it to me can we open up Godot again and show that the game does not have an army of bad guys?
Yeah. So if we just go right back to that game and run it right out the gate.
Because, again,
we saved the file, we closed Godot, we did some stuff in Git. Yeah, now we're opening this again, and you'll see. I mean,
now that might be like for you, like, why do I need to shut?
No,
but
for
sense. Me, you get it, because it's just you're just typing in this black window. You're like, did that do anything?
Yeah.
Well, it did. Look,
Look, we're back to how we were.
Guys is gone.
Yeah.
We're back to normal.
And what we could do, I'll show, kind of drive it home a bit too. If we select, oops, not the player. We want the enemy here. So I'm going to grab this enemy. I can also right click and duplicate him here, right? Is that the best way to do this? Or just copy and paste?
Control D.
Oh, Control D, duplicate. Yeah. So I just made a copy of that enemy, and I'm going to move him, right here. Okay. Make it really hard.
That's unfair.
Right? And save. But I'm demoing something specific. So again, All right, we start the game. Okay, so we put an enemy there, and then we're like, haha,
Lost two
that was
lives immediately.
funny. Let's do it. A whole bunch of enemies like we did before, right? Where we're like, oh wait, no, I've got ahead of myself. Hold on, I'm Control Zing. Okay, we made the one extra enemy. We saved the game. Now, if we commit this, so we're saying, okay, I like that. That's funny. Let's commit it to memory. Whatever. We're actually gonna say we're gonna do another commit here. So we're actually saying we want to save this. So git commit, or sorry, git add, and this is again where you can hit tab. Git knows what files have changed. So if you hit tab and only one file has changed, it'll only suggest that one file, which is kind of cool. Or you can hit git add dot and it'll save all the files. It'll add all the files in the folder. So git add dot git commit. Helps so I can type correctly. And then we're gonna give it a message of move added enemy above player. So again, being kind of light on the theory of good commit messages and stuff, right? But I'm just saying I'm saving this. So we've under the hood it says one file changed and there were 3 insertions. It changed 3 lines of code somewhere. That's fine. Now, this is where I was going to say, okay, if we were like, okay, great, that was funny. Let's, duplicate this and make 1 million of these enemies here, whatever. That's just be ridiculous. Whatever. There's a whole bunch here. And save this and, or run this. And, that's funny. Oh my gosh, there's too many. And I lost immediately because it's too hard now. I made the game too hard. It's too many enemies there. And now in Git, we can say, again, Git status. It's saying, well, since your last commit, that commit where we just added 1 enemy above the player, since your last commit, you've modified that file. So now if you wanted to undo that change, you can say git restore dot, and it's going to undo any changes that haven't been committed. So it'll go back to having 1 enemy above the player.
It'll save your one guy you changed because you actually saved
I committed
that
it. I was like, I want that. I committed that to memory. Yep. And so now
maybe in a future video we can show how you can even just that's not permanent either. You can
So now I've got
you
one.
could undo or you could walk that back too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One other okay, so I know we've gone on for a while here, but there's one other thing I think at the risk of, and you can knock this one down, but at the risk of going too far into I don't want to do that. But there's this other thing that I think I wish I had known, which is okay. So you go through all these hoops, you jump through all these hoops, you have this strange looking app that is just text in a black window.
Yeah.
But now we see with a single command, git restore period, and you get to wipe. It's like a big giant undo button. The other thing I thought would be useful if I was brand new is if I had done the army of bad guys and I didn't want to permanently change my project, but I also kind of wanted to save the goofy army of bad guys.
Explore that idea a little bit. Yeah.
Can you maybe show that in the simplest way how you can use what they call branching, which you would often think of as just different versions of your game, and set them aside without losing them.
Yeah.
But then also have the regular one. So you get to keep you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to have the best of both worlds. Could you show that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd preface it a bit by saying the analogy that I like because of the terminology that Git uses, it's helpful. Of okay, they call it a branch. What does that mean? Why is it a branch? Well, you think of if you think of your project as a tree, right? You have the trunk of the tree. You have the main bit of the tree. Well, you want to, like you said, you want to kind of set this aside and go off and diverge. I'm trying to fit this in my little camera window here, so you can branch off of it. You branch off, and it's alongside, it's growing alongside the main version, right? And it's branched off. And now the analogy falls kind of apart because you can pull the branch back in, and then it's weird. But the idea is that you have your main project, and then you branch off, and then it's in parallel to your other one. So you can actually switch between controlling which of those branches that you're working on. And so you have a main branch, and then you can have other branches too that are branched off. And then you can have things that branch off of other branches too, and it can get crazy. But that's what the word branch means.
It can be done with a single little line of a little command, and you just get a whole separate place to experiment. But like the restore thing allows you to undo experimentation,
Mhm.
but you're stuck with only one copy of your game, where this way you get to make different goofy versions and save them all, and you
Yeah.
could go back to them.
Yeah. So let's say, I guess let's start by making a bunch of goofy, right? A goofy change or something. So let's go back and make a million
army.
a million army of
Let's
yeah
just call
of
me-
enemies here. Let's just duplicate this a bunch of times and then throw them up randomly in these random positions here. So we're just
Okay.
being silly, right? And then when we actually run the game, it's like, oh my gosh, and then you immediately lose because they all run into you. So, but we're like, hey, actually, I want to experiment with that. I do want 12, 13, 14 new enemies. I don't know where they're going to be exactly yet, so I don't want to delete them completely. I want to maybe experiment with that some more later. So again, we saved it because we ran it. It saved it in Godot. And now again, if we get status here, we have a change that
Okay.
Godot or Git knows. Okay, that file did change. It hasn't committed it to memory, but it says I know something changed with it. So what we can do is, this is where there's newer commands that since I learned Git, what would you
I
use?
was showing switch before.
Okay, interesting. Okay, because there's Git
switch
branch
-c, but
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to do things.
Okay.
Because you can do Git branch. Was it? Now I have to like remember my muscle memory. Like Git branch. Wow. Why can't I think of it? N? No. What is it? Git branch. Help. Oh gosh, it's not going to open in the terminal. It's going to open in the browser. This is fine. You can do -- help anytime, and it gives you specific help for that command. Oh, D. Okay. D, which is confusing. And it'll tell you what everything does. No, not D. D is delete.
is it
This is
C?
why M, move, C, copy. Anyway, we'll do it your way because my brain is totally failing.
Okay.
This is fine.
So the way I was doing it was the Git space switch.
Yeah. Switch.
Space -c.
So yeah, and what that's doing under the hood is git switch create, right?
Okay.
So it's -c is
I
short
didn't
for
even know that. Didn't
Yep.
know that. Just memorize the C, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it's where if you do I wish that man page thing opened in the terminal because I feel like it's more clear when that happens. But yeah, it's usually when you have that dash, or usually if you have a dash and then one letter, it's actually like a shortcut for a dash longer command. It's just so it's easier to type. But yeah, so we're saying git switch C to create, and it's gonna git switch switches to a different branch. But if you say -c, you're like, hey, switch to it, but create it as it's because it doesn't exist yet, right?
So the first time I did this, after you just put a space after the letter C,
Yeah.
I got all crossed up because even though it's only one line, and I never got struggle with this after, when you did the commit messages, you had to put it in quotes. But here, no quotes needed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
If you want to do multiple words, I would tell me if you would agree with this. I have started to make my different branches or my different versions of the game very short because you might have to type them again later. So I don't like my first mistake was like naming a branch like a full sentence.
Oh yeah, no, don't do that.
And it was a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Usually you want your names of your branch. So again, remember like where's my mouse here? It's showing us the name of the branch right here. So that's a good way to remember too. Is like you don't want this really long, obnoxious name there. You want it to be short, sweet, to the point. It doesn't have to be super descriptive, but it has to be something you can just remember. So I'm going to call this like mob or something, just something short. Is like, what am I calling this? If I was fixing a specific bug or something, I could say like fix dash, if I was fixing a thing where you were falling through the floor or the gravity was broken, I could call it, fix dash gravity or something like just.
I would call this one bad guys.
But yeah, you can call it bad guys. And typically you want dashes. I think you can technically use underscores and some other characters, but typically I'd say dashes are the normal practice for naming branches instead of spaces. So git switch C bad guys.
Yeah, it does yell at me when I use spaces.
Yeah, it says I switched to a new branch, bad guys. And now...
And you can see it.
And now we can say git status, and it still says... We haven't actually added anything. That's the thing you have to always be careful of. Like, you haven't actually committed. It knows that there are changes that are sitting here, but nothing's committed. And what were you going to say, Justin? You can see.
Oh, I was just gonna say that you can confirm it doesn't say main anymore.
Oh,
It
yeah.
says bad guys in green.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's showing you the name of that branch is there. And
yeah.
it's also, if you say get status, it says here on branch bad guys. So get status is your friend. I always recommend, if you don't know, if you kind of forget where you are, what you're doing, who you are, whatever, get status.
It says your Cassidy.
Yeah. So it'll tell you what Git knows about, what branch you're currently on, what files are there. So, and it even says use git add or git commit a to add these files. So we can add.
Oh, that's nice.
So now we want to say git add dot, and then we can add a commit message here. Git commit message, and we're gonna say added lots of bad guys above player, or whatever.
So now we've got, when you hit enter,
Yeah.
we're gonna have two different. It's very cheap and easy to do.
Yeah.
You can do this all the time, and now you've got two different versions. And the only thing I wanted to ask is, and I think I have to get going, but
Okay.
the thing I wanted to ask about this second way of experimenting, where you can have a bunch of copies,
Yeah.
branches.
Yeah.
How does someone quickly check the whole list? Because like, what if I made like 10, I was having fun and I was making like all different kinds of the game, and
Yeah.
somebody told me to make branches, so I kept making branches, but now I can't remember their names. Like,
Yeah, so I just did that tab complete thing on accident because I was trying to remember what the command was. So one thing, when you say git branch or git switch, I guess would work the same way, right? If you git switch, if you're saying you want to switch between branches, if it helps if you type the word correctly. If you hit tab 2 times, that's what's going to tell you what you can type next. It says here's what you can switch to, but you can also can you also do list? Is that what it is? Oh no, and it's going to tell me I don't know what that means. Here's what you can do. Or is it git branch list is what I'm thinking of.
Git branch list, maybe?
Yeah, git branch list. So you're saying list out these branches. And it even gives you a nice little
Awesome.
thing showing you you're on this one with the little asterisks and highlighted there.
But it shows you both.
But it shows you all of the available ones. So if you had a bunch of different branches, you can say git branch -- list, or you might be able to even do git branch. Can you just do -l?
So with these,
Yeah, same thing.
so with these two things, like
Mhm.
doing the git restore, after you set up all the setup stuff, with these two things, you can like wipe off changes from the main version, or if you wanted to keep saving these little things that you were experimenting
Yeah,
with,
you could
but
just
not ruin the main, you just keep you can make little
Right.
branches for you.
Yeah, and yeah, you think of it as branching. If you're into sci-fi or like time travel stuff, it's a branching timeline. It literally is what it is. You're saying we started at this point, but at that point we branched off into a new dimension, a new timeline, and then you can branch off of that branch, or you can go back to your original one and branch off of there. So you can always like split off into a new, and then just like in sci-fi, there are ways to combine those branches back in the future, but sometimes it can get really messy.
Well, I think that's good. I think
I was gonna show
just if you're playing around and exploring for the
Yeah.
first time.
I was gonna show here real quick
up,
of how we're so this is on the bad guys branch, right? And we have all those enemies there. I don't even have to play the game, right? You can see there's all those enemies there. So just to complete kind of the thing, you can then, if you actually type git switch and you go back to your main branch, now it's going to take you back to your main branch. And again, this is why we say close Godot when you're going to do git stuff, because it's like if it changed under the hood out from under Godot, it would be a little confusing. But now if we open up the project, we're back to where we should just have our last change, which was one guy above. Yeah, one bad guy above the player. And then if we want to switch back, you can just git switch bad guys, and you're back. So you can kind of work on these, and you can even commit in each timeline separately, which is weird, right? But it saves in each timeline, in each different branch. So yeah, now we're back on the bad guys, and it'll have those bad guys there again. So it's to these totally parallel tracks.
And I think that even though it's just a way of using Git to experiment, I think that you and I both know that like it's hard to remember those commands. So like if you keep using it in this way, you will start to remember the save process, git add, git commit.
Yeah, you build that muscle memory.
And then you'll also remember how to easily switch between branches.
Yeah.
And the more comfortable you get with that, the more everything else later when you try to work with other people, it's a little bit less information.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. It's a nice way to practice it, but you also get that tangible benefit, like you said, of experimenting locally.
Honestly, from
Yeah.
now on, from at this point, I almost never work in Godot
Hmm.
without the Git open
Yeah.
because I know I'm going to make a mess and I
Yeah.
want to try things, and it's so
Yeah.
much
It's
more
there.
comfortable
It's
to know I
there.
have that there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you can
it's
always
way
check
better.
your status of like, all right, before I go crazy, do I have everything committed the way I want it? And then you go crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's freeing in a way, right? Yeah. You know you can break things and you're not going to lose your work forever if you've committed it to Git.
Exactly.
Yep. Cool.
Cool.
This was fun. I think we could
Wow.
probably have a
GitHub.
little bit more of a an agenda ahead of time, but I'd also
Yeah.
not too prescriptive. Like I liked that it was pretty free flowing, but I feel like there were a few times where like, well, what do we actually want to do? So,
Yeah.
but it was pretty good. It's good.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks
Cassidy.
everybody for joining. I'll talk to you later, Justin. And
See you later.
I guess I should do the whole like, go back here
Oh, nice.
or go
fade.
back here. Say thanks for joining. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can obviously follow my channel where you found this, but hopefully the goal is we're going to have some of this stuff on the Endless Foundation YouTube channel as well. So this is kind of just a test run. But yeah, thanks for joining us and see you all later.